Hey, Coach Richard here in beautiful Merrickville, Ontario. Actually, not such a beautiful day, but certainly is one of those days where you appreciate summer. Rideau Canal behind me runs all the way from Ottawa all the way down to Lake Ontario, filled with pleasure boats all during the summertime. People making the grand journey. Some people are making the Great Loop that runs all the way from the tip of Florida all the way through. You can look it up. You can look up Merrickville if you want to know more about it. But anyways, today, something that comes up from time to time, both with athletes that I work with and certainly in business and people trying to grow their entire influence with people. It's the difference between pleasure and happiness. Big difference. But we oftentimes confuse it. And that's just why I wanted to bring this up today. See, pleasure oftentimes is something that's very short term. You know, we get pleasure by sitting with that piece of chocolate cake and then going to get another one, or we get pleasure by sitting down with that can of fermented hops, after work every day, or perhaps we get pleasure from binge watching TV shows like over and over and over again. In that very moment, it's pleasure. But a lot of times then it's sort of like lunch bag letdown, that we realize that what we've done was not congruent with the things that we wanted to achieve in the longer term. Going the extra mile oftentimes is something that's anti-pleasure. Climbing another 1,000 feet on a trail run may not be filled with pleasure at that moment, but when everything is completely over with and done, we're very happy and joyful for what we did accomplish. Making that extra call is something that, I'm tired, I've had enough. Or we make that extra call, and then when it's all done, it's like, yeah, I'm glad I did that. It brought me a bit of joy and happiness. Perhaps you actually influenced somebody to take a positive step. You see, big difference again between pleasure and happiness. Now, they can come together, don't get me wrong, but as adults, and I deal with adults most of the time, what happens is we've sort of fallen into this entire trap of pleasure. Okay, we escape through something that we perceive to be pleasure. And it's not, as I say, come back to it, congruent with the things that we really wanted to achieve. But in that moment, it brought us something, not really joy so much as it was just some degree of very temporary satisfaction that, again, was disappointing to us when we stop and think about what we just did. I see people do that all the time, myself included. At times it's like, then I have to snap out of it and say, no, there are some other things that I really want to accomplish and do, and it's not going to get accomplished taking this action of, say, I don't know, sitting down and watching the entire football game when there's something else I really want to do that's longer term on that. You know what I'm talking about. I think you know what I'm talking about. I hope you know what I'm talking about, because if you do, then you have control over your life. See, so many other influences kind of suck us back into that temporary pleasure zone, right? It just does. It's interesting. There was a study that was done regarding the business model of Cinnabon in the malls. And the whole idea about that was, in the baking and the things that they did with that, was to really activate the pleasure senses of people walking by, that they could smell it out in the foyer or the hallway or whatever it is that goes by that. And people's pleasure zone went off and said, oh, I need one of those. I need to have that. And it ends up defeating what they're maybe set out to do, like, I don't know, like refrain from sugary things maybe for a week or two or three or whatever it is, because the pleasure's on, a little bit won't hurt me, right? I want to reach out and have a little bit of that pleasure. And that's that really is an odd thing about the human condition, because the human condition is something that, honest to goodness, does help us defeat our own purposes, our own objectives, our goals, or that sort of thing. So when I work with people in my business, one of the things I do when I sit down with people is trying to understand what, in the long term, what is it that somebody wants? And oftentimes people may be lost in that. They just really haven't given much thought to it. It's things that they would like to have, but necessarily don't necessarily know the steps, and maybe that some of that sacrifice and work that they need to put in order to achieve it. You just see so much of that is lost in our current social construct and structure. It's always about that immediate satisfaction, immediate, I don't know, or just immediacy, right? And immediacy doesn't necessarily blend with objective. You know, a person wants to set out and run a marathon. Guess what? Going out and running a mile today is not going to end up creating an environment in which you'll be able to run 26 miles next weekend. That it's a training process. It's a sacrificing process. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's rainy. Yes, it's dark. But the work has to be put in, and you discover and end up having great joy and happiness from it, that the work is worth it. That's the whole key in that, right? The work is worth it. So when I sit down in a business standpoint, we try and understand what a person wants long term. You know, and as I said, they may not know exactly what it is. They have a feeling of what it would be like, maybe a feeling. And then a plan can be put in place in order to understand the steps that need to take place, the ability to master the craft, the ability to take your mouth off mute, the ability to understand what products and how you can influence and bring benefit to other people, what needs to be done on that. And people aren't going to grab it all overnight. Some people may, because of their background, they may have different skills and abilities and such that they bring to the table. But the bottom line is everybody, and I do mean everybody, has the ability to move from where they are to where they want to be. And they just have to determine if the work is worth it. And that comes down to the reality of the individual's mindset. And maybe they have to develop that mindset. That's all. It's that simple. Everybody has the ability. The question is, are you going to grab hold of your innate skills, develop new ones, and work with people that can help you get from where you are to where you want to be? That, folks, is the key. Where you are to where you want to be. The skills that you need to bring in place, the discipline that needs to be there, the ability to educate your expectations, to discipline your disappointments, and most importantly, the ability to believe in you. All right, that's it from Merrickville and the banks of the Rideau River. And away we go. All right, bye-bye.